Annenberg Media.
I believe that there is a good death, that I think it hinges, for me, again, around choice.
What would be a good death to me? I don't know. I think just to pop off. As a matter of fact, that's what most of my family do. I mean, enough's enough. If you've had a good time, well, we've had a good time. What's wrong with it?
I have seen good deaths. I have seen a death with a mother who was 67 years old. At the end, all her children were there hugging and holding her. And this is what I feel can be a beautiful thing.
People have always hoped to meet death with ease or with honor. As witnesses to the death of someone we love, or as we face our own mortality, we have tried to meet the challenge of the painful role death plays in our lives. And we have believed that the way we die can be as important as the way we live. These aims nourish the ancient changing ideal of the good death.
Is it time to help a person to die if they want to, or should we be caring? Should we be killing the person with every good meaning in the world? I love you, therefore I kill you. Or is it a loving thing to do to help care for the person and keep them going for as long as nature will let them live? These are now among the most agonizing decisions, and they've reached the main courts of the land. These are examples of change and conflict within our death systems. Nothing in life seems to stay the same, and the same thing with the relationship between life and death.
The day dies 365 times a year. The earth goes through this transition with the seasons. As an artist, I would say that I would use every second of my existence to try to uncover some aspect of truth that would allow people to accept that their existence is framed by non-existence.
Well, usually the dying don't even have an imagination that there's meaning and purpose in dying, because they've been socialized largely by society as a whole that doesn't see dying as a productive, purposeful point in life or time in life. Then they've also been socialized by a medical community, which I'm very much a part of and admire, but a medical community that sees dying as an enemy. It is something to be resisted, fought, and overcome.
Our culture tends to fear death because we see it as a lack of control, a lack of mastery, and mastery is one of the great goals in a technological culture. It's not a big enough or a good enough value to lead a human life by. Often it is in times of vulnerability that we know what life is about, what its value is, and that the love that we have been given can be trusted. And I have come to think that vulnerability is strength. what I thought was strength turns out to be rigidity or even fear.
If you've grown up all your life with that idea of circularity, the idea of everything having a place and moving in a certain pattern, you realize that you're part of that dance as well. In many of our communities, there's a proverb that is, today is a good day to die. And it means that it used to be a battle cry when people would go out, but it isn't just that. It's more the idea of this is a philosophy of how you should live your life. If there's someone I love, I've told them that I love them. If there's someone that I've hurt, I've made restitution for that hurt. To have lived your life to the extent that if you did die today, you would have no regrets in terms of unfinished business.
A preparation to greet death well may enrich our daily life. But today, medicine often extends the life of a person who is in physical and mental pain. In this setting, the good death has found a new form in palliative care. This treatment alleviates pain and symptoms and supports the patient in spiritual and practical matters. It comes into play when illness is incurable, death is accepted, and comfort is sought.
We should be allowed to die with dignity. I think that we should not be given all these extreme measures that people are given. Okay. I'm going to take my blood pressure now. Yes.
Suffering from terminal cancer, Ardella von Schoik decided to gain the most from her last days with her family and friends. She chose palliative care instead of chemotherapy and its painful side effects.
Yeah, I only had to take one pain pill last night. Well, I have very negative thoughts about chemotherapy. My husband almost died with the second chemotherapy treatment. And I said I would take 2 treatments. If they acted adversely to me, I would not continue. And I took 2 treatments. The first one was fine. The second one, I was sick for 3 days. And I said, that's it. I hope that when I die, I'll die in my sleep. I never, for any length of time, imagined I would be in this bed this long.
I think a good death would be one that you had some time to prepare for, that clearly you didn't suffer with. I mean, there's going to be, I think, some suffering. Suffering accompanies any death, and, you know, if only psychological suffering, knowing that you're going to die. I don't think anybody wants to die. So I think that there's always a suffering, a leave taking from others. It's going to involve some existential or some sense of crisis in your life as a person, you know, that you're going to die and that, you know, this is it. And one that you have good caregivers looking after you, physicians who care for you as a person. I know when my mother was dying in hospital, my own hospital actually, you have a chance to see things from the other side and realize that we're far from dealing with the dying process very well. That I think I'd prefer to probably die at home than in a hospital. I know what institutional life is like these days. There's less time for individual needs now than there used to be. So probably a good death would one that come a lot later.
Elaine and Darcy Radlett have brought their sons, Ian and Jean-Paul, to Canuck Place, a children's hospice. Here they are learning about palliative care for their infant, Ian, who is terminally ill with the genetic disorder of the metabolism.
Things are much quieter here. We don't have anybody coming to do blood tests on a daily basis, and there isn't the sense of urgency around every procedure. It's more of a sense of wanting to work with us, make us part of the process, rather than have physicians or nurses come in and have us step back, as you would see in an acute care hospital. Because this is really what we have to offer our child right now, is to give them as much love as we can.
We really feel that every single life is precious, and no matter how short it is, or how
hard
how
it is.
sick somebody is.
Nobody can really understand what the meaning of someone's life is. So to look at Ian, it might seem like we just got a very sick little baby here and just get on with things. But I think, Ian's going to play a terrific role in John Paul's life, for example. I think the real interesting story, perhaps, is going to be when we look back 20 years from now and say, John Paul's really done some wonderful things in his life, and perhaps it was because of the positive formation that he got out of his experience with his little brother.
Does it? It feels funny, doesn't it?
Dying takes a long time these days because medical science has done such a good job at keeping people alive and at prolonging their life. And that's what we want science to do. But there comes a time when science has to have a different kind of conscience and be able to say, we need to stop our aggressive treatment. We need to start to talk to people about what this is going to look like in terms of the end of their life.
What you saw was what you got. She was remarkably intelligent, extraordinarily realistic, and above all, perhaps, that she was a very gentle creature, very appreciative of the wide varieties of different kinds of people, different viewpoints, different attitudes. And these were things that I had always valued.
George and Myrna Delury were married for 22 years. Shortly before their marriage, Myrna was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. As Myrna's health declined, she became bedridden, paralyzed from the waist down. She became totally dependent on George. She also suffered memory loss and depression. Finally, Myrna considered suicide.
To watch someone lose their personality, lose their reason, while they're still alive, and while there's still bits and pieces of them left, is perhaps worse than actually experiencing their death. A caregiver can fall into grief long before a person dies. There were times when she was more aware and alert, but those times were more and more infrequent. In the end, in a period, it struck me, she was quite rational, quite realistic, and she said, "George, I want tomorrow to be my last day." And there was something about the way she said it, and about her mood, that made it clear to me that she wasn't just reacting to immediate events, but was looking at the whole situation clearly. And when later that day she told me, "George, there's no point in waiting till tomorrow, let's do it tonight," I knew that she had crossed the boundary and was really ready to go.
George stockpiled a toxic dose of one of Myrna's medications.
The evening of her death, I poured this stuff into plastic cups with straws. I got her into bed and did the last catheterization. And we sat beside each other in bed for about 15 minutes, my arm around her. We didn't talk. Both of us, I think, were numb with what was occurring and afraid we might break down if we talked. When she went to bed, I kissed her on the cheek and said, I love you. I don't know if she heard or not, because she was already perhaps asleep.
When Myrna died, she was 52 years old.
I'm not ashamed of what I've done, and I don't feel guilty in any legal or even moral way. But I did experience a sense of simply being wrong with nature. A sense of being out of tune, of being even unclean in an ancient ritualistic sort of sense, perhaps even animalistic. not law, religious teaching, or anything else has anything to do with. It's just human nature to feel somehow responsible for a nearby death.
With a plea bargain, George served 4 months in Rikers Island prison for attempted manslaughter.
If I had cancer and I couldn't walk and I was lying in bed wearing a diaper and I couldn't move around and I just had pain all the time, by God, I'd want physician-assisted suicide and I would want euthanasia. There's no question about it. But whether it's right or wrong is another question.
Dr. Willie Malloy is worried about a widespread acceptance of physician-assisted suicide. As a gerontologist, he works with patients whom he fears may be pressured into believing they have no future or value.
Most of the people dying in the healthcare system, they're not young, healthy, cognitively intact people. Most of them are elderly, frail, dying. Society has already told you that they're useless. They have no purpose. They have no utility. They're a drain on the healthcare resources. They're a bedpan society. When you're old, you're ugly. When you're demented, you're even uglier. We have such negative images of old age and death that there's no question that people would say, well, if I get Alzheimer's disease, give me a physician-assisted suicide or euthanize me. People would be asking for it because of this preconceived idea of what it was.
The dying are not particularly valued as anything but drains on the system, that they take away healthcare dollars that could be used to cure people, that if society really felt that dying was important, we'd have more money to help people die.
Religious traditions have generally opposed euthanasia, physician-assisted suicide, because of the interposition of human judgment and human mechanisms in the process that has been seen as a process guided by divine providence or karmic destiny that human beings should not have the power to intervene in.
There are circumstances of death and dying that I think we can't adequately palliate. The best palliative care unit in the world, I believe, cannot address certain things that some patients who are dying cannot tolerate. You cannot adequately palliate their loss of dignity. They're totally dependent on someone else. And for some people, that is a circumstances of life which is worse than death. You have to be careful that a patient's not depressed. You have to make sure that they've been provided with every form of palliative care and every option that's available. If you've done that, then I think there are circumstances that justify some more active form of a physician helping a patient die.
The majority of people that are coming to see us in palliative care these days are people who have been given a diagnosis of a terminal illness. They are people who want to die. And in the process of discussing how they will die, we help them live. We try to improve their quality of life. We try and get them to bring closure on their life in terms of the relationships they have with people. We try and make them quite competent at losing and being able to say goodbye. To be able to get them to start to wish and hope and see a new horizon is to spark their imaginations. When you're dying, you don't have a future. And someone comes along and asks them to imagine a future, even if it's hours and days, that people are able to treasure that and enter into it.
In probably 99% of all cases, pain can be controlled. Okay? And aloneness can also be controlled. We are there for each other. And when we accompany people to the edge of life and when we deal with their pain, often the meaning of their lives become clear to them for the first time. They often help the people around them, their family, people who otherwise might be wounded for years, can be healed by the person who is actually dying?
I think there is no time in our life when we most need understanding and love, reassurance, comfort, respect, than when we're seriously ill or when we're facing death. During the years that I did hospice visiting and helped to administer and create this program, I found so many people dying in a peaceful way, surrounded at home with their loved ones, their family, with the support of the hospice and the volunteers, the family members encouraged to resolve any unfinished business and prepare well so that when their loved one died, there was a quality there of, yes, the sadness of letting go of someone that you love, but also a sense of having completed life well. And so sometimes when I was asked, well, isn't this very depressing work? I would often say, I think if I was caring for dying people who didn't have the advantages of hospice care, I would feel it was very depressing work. But these are people who know that the last possibility of your life is coming now. This is your chance to heal your life and conclude it well.
If anyone would think of me after my death, I would want them to think in terms of me having been fulfilled.
Stevie Sayers battled terminal cervical cancer for 5 years. She was frustrated by acute physical pain. But palliative care and therapy brought her a renewed sense of purpose and worth. Before she died, Stevie planned her own funeral with family and friends.
I'm young. I'll probably be 43 when I die, but I've done many more things in 43 years than a lot of people have in terms of experiencing life and challenging myself and, you know, surrounding myself with good people.
It's not that they're breadwinners anymore. It's not that they are necessarily even going to be able to make their own food or go grocery shopping, but they might be the spirit of the family. That in the suffering that they experience, if they teach people that they love, or even that they don't love, how to talk about the most difficult issues in their life, that it is likely that the next generation will have a very different sense of how to cope in life.
We think that God tends to work through the least people, the simplest or the smallest. They can get the biggest message out with the smallest little person. And I think that's what we see with Ian here, is he's certainly the most helpless, but he can say an awful lot. He can do an awful lot.
We're living here and now in a very strange, fast-moving environment. How we cope with death today may be a little different than our grandparents would, maybe different again than our grandchildren will, but some kind of discourse, some kinds of communication about it is necessary. And sometimes just a look, a touch is really all we need.
For me, the best way for a spiritual person to prepare for death is to remember that the dead are still alive, and that moving into the world of those who have died is not to ultimately be cut off or to be bereft of this community, but is to continue to, in some mysterious ways, be present to the community of the living. Often, even in this life, what is unknown, what can't be predicted, can sometimes yield some surprising and wonderful things.
Annenberg Media. For information about this and other Annenberg Media programs, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org.